Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to this discussion on desert locusts that's been bothering our farmers and especially the agricultural fraternity all across the country now. So to discuss this in a very scientific way and to provide fact and possibly help us in this situation, we have three experts with us today. These are Dr. Belinda from Kennady International, Dr. Jaba Jagdish, who's head of entomology at ICRISAT, and Dr. Kennedy, who is Dean of Postgraduate Studies at Tamil Nadu Agricultural University. Thank you all three of you for joining us, and we really look forward to this very useful session. We've had a lot of feedback already on social media with people telling us how important this topic is for us today. To start very briefly, I'd like to invite our Executive Director in charge, Dr. G N Hariharan, to say a few words on this occasion and why we are having this discussion today.
And it's a pleasure meeting you all through this portal. On behalf of MSSRF, I thank everybody for joining and to discuss about this important topic. Before we get in, I wanted to display the message from Professor Swaminathan. When we heard about this particular menace, he gave a very, very important Twitter message, and I read, I quote, "The locust menace is causing serious damage to agriculture. Farmers are worried. The best way in controlling the locust invasion is to spray neem seed decoction over the plants." When we had an interaction with him, he recalled his days when a scientist informed and demonstrated how this desert locust can be controlled using the neem seed decoction. And neem is a strong repellent. Neem also serves as a fertilizer. So he hopes our farmers will be able to manage the serious threat to the crop security. So this is at the first line he gave. But he is very much concerned. If this is going to continue, this will have a larger implication on the food and nutrition security of the most vulnerable sections of the society. Already, our people are suffering due to COVID, especially the migrant workers, and they are moving. And because of this locust problem also, if you are going to have such menace, then the whole problem will get aggravated. So without waiting any further, it's a joint effort by all those who are concerned. There are several stakeholders inside, and we all need to come together to help the farming fraternity so that the crops can be saved to ensure the food and nutrition security. Today, unfortunately, virus which is invisible, and a locust normally we used to consider is useless things as there are beneficial insects. In a witty way, I'm saying this is a harmful insect, and these are all the trouble givers to humanity. So collectively, we have to put our wisdom. Biological sciences have grown up very well. There are integrated pest management practices, and especially this particular insect lay their eggs in the soil, and there are about 5 developmental nymph stages, and the first 2-3 nymph stages they cannot fly, but there will be a possibility for us to control. So with this, if we can really approach this particular science-based approach to really control the menace, insects can be controlled. That's where we are going for integrated pest management. We cannot destroy them completely. Pest management is very, very vital. We have to keep them within our control so that we can safeguard agriculture, and with that, we can ensure food security. There are experts available who can discuss in length what are all the measures that are available for us to really bring the swarms under control and make our crops safe from this insect menace. With these few words, I request Jayashree to take over and invite the other members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. This is to start off formally by just introducing the three key speakers here today. We are privileged to have Dr. Belinda from CAB International. She's a senior insect pathologist and a team leader biopesticides. The reason her experience is so valuable here today is because she's worked in biopesticide development for over 23 years. And specifically, she has been working on a biopesticide to control locusts and grasshoppers in Africa. So she also ran a 3-year project in China, modeling how biopesticides can work against locusts in different climatic conditions. So what she's working on now, called BioSuccess, can help end users know when to expect locust death after application of biopesticides. So she's it's very good that you could join us today, Dr. Liu, and we really look forward to your vast experience to listen to you today. The other speaker on the panel is Dr. Jaba Jagdish, scientist and head entomology at the International Crops Research Institute for the Semi-Arid Tropics, ICRISAT, Hyderabad. He has been, he has published more than 35 research articles in national and international journals, and his experience both as a researcher as well as an agronomist, and his work both in Mumbai, Uttarakhand, as well as during his PhD programs, have made him a very apt person to talk about it. Right now, he's also a very passionate person when it comes to insects, and as the head of the entomology unit at ICRISAT, he brings experience from both Asia and Africa that he can share at this forum. Joining us today is Dr. Kennedy from the Tamil Nadu Agricultural University, who's the Dean of School of Postgraduate Studies, who has his DSc in Applied Natural Science from Université Catholique de Louvain, Belgium. And his specialization is in the areas of population ecology, biological control, acarology, and insect resistance development. So it's a diverse panel, but all very experienced. And we will start off first with the first question. Maybe Dr. Kennedy, if you could go first. There's been so much discussion on desert locusts over the past few days and few weeks, in fact. One of the primary questions has also been that of panic. So could you tell us in a very simple and systematic way, how do we differentiate from panic, and how do we differentiate from just dealing with the situation as it is now, Dr. Kennedy?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Well, locust, as such, as said, it is an insect. Now, visibly we see everything. Now, the point over here is that now, why do we develop a panic? Now, if you just look at that, I'll just share a few PowerPoint slides. Perhaps that will help you to understand how it started, its spread, and how it's coming from over there. Just a minute. I'll just take my locust PowerPoint. Now, if you see locust, it is just a grasshopper. Only thing is that the grasshopper would change its behavior, and then it will become a locust. Now, perhaps we will have to differentiate between a grasshopper and the locust. Now, as I said, that locust, it's all just mere grasshoppers, and then they will become a locust. Now, when do they become a locust? It seems that there is that's a phenomenon called phase variation, where the locusts generally are, the grasshoppers generally are solitary, and the solitary grasshopper will become a locust by a phenomenon called phase variation. See, solitary locusts, if you just look at that, the solitary locusts, they behave independently, they repel from other insects, and they walk slowly with creeping and active mostly in the night, and the diet is very much restricted. On the other hand, the locust, they behave as a cohesive unit. They are attracted to conspecific species, and they walk rapidly, and they are active mostly at day, and their diet is very, very broad. Now, if you just look at a picture, if you see that the final instar of a solitary grasshopper, it is cryptic in coloration. On the other hand, the gregarious one, the coloration would vary, and and then the gregarious locusts, they will have more fat bodies them, and they are attracted to each other, and they groom with each other. Normally the locusts, they would breed in 3 seasons: one during summer, one during winter, and one during spring. Fortunately, in India, the locust breeding that occurs only in summer, and however, in the neighboring country in Pakistan, they breed both this spring and summer. So in India, the locust breeding generally it occurs only in July to October, and generally how they become the locust is that there is a pheromone called geocol. This geocol is a key component pheromone which is derived from the locust fecal pellets, and that would promote the aggregation of the locust. Once the locusts they become aggregated, what they will do is that there is a gut bacteria that is present inside the locust, and they would help in secreting a chemical called serotonin. This serotonin, it acts on the brain and then it triggers, and based upon that the locusts they would come closer together and they would start grooming. And also there is a brain boost will be there, the midbrain that will become bigger, and then what will happen is that the locust, the female would be smaller in size, so that they will creep very fast, they will move and they will use less energy, and then they will move very fast. So, and the another thing is that the locust movement generally, it is governed by the wind. The locust is governed by the wind. So when it is governed by the wind, what happens is that the wind will take them. For example, in India, now the southwest monsoon have set in, and then the movement, the wind movement, it is towards the northward direction. When it is towards the northward direction, what happens is that they push the locust towards northward. So right now, we do have the locust swarming somewhere in 34 districts of Rajasthan, Punjab, Haryana, Madhya Pradesh, and Maharashtra, and then it is pushed towards northward. When it is pushed towards northward, it moves to Delhi as well as in Uttar Pradesh and other regions. So down south, the problem of the locust coming down, it is very, it's remotely possible. So that we are to some extent, we are safe, and at the same time, there is no need for panicking about the locust. And at the same time, the locust can also be controlled by some insecticides that are not really very much poisonous. To some extent, we can control the locust. And regarding the biological control, when we have the biological control, we do have some biological control, particularly Metarrhizium anisoplia. But Metarrhizium anisoplia and other biological control agents, they can be used only in the breeding site, so that in the breeding sites they can be controlled. The rest of the places, they cannot be controlled. Now, is that okay that I told the reason why we don't have to panic much about the locust? And secondly, the locust also, the flight movement is that only up to 2,000 feet. So above 2,000 feet in higher altitude, locusts, they don't fly fast and they don't go over there. So that is the reason that locust movement towards the south and rest of the country is much lesser, and except in the northern part of our country, where if we take much of the control measures, then probably we'll be in a position to control the locust.
Broadly, thank you very much. You have given us an idea about how the movement happens, and in India,
am I audible?
That we are likely to expect. If I could just request Dr. Belinda Luke to come in at this point, because you did mention about biopesticides which would not be so harmful, and how they could be used. So Dr. Luke.
So yes, I would just like to talk about the biological control. So I worked on a project called the Lubelosa project.
Initiate the discussion.
That happened quite a few years ago now, in the early 80s. And through that, we developed the whole system of developing biopesticides, from finding the isolate right through to working out its mass production capabilities, its storage capabilities, obviously its efficacy, use in the field, formulation, up to helping commercial companies register it. Now, through that process, we gained a lot of knowledge to help promote biopesticides, and everything was published so that researchers could go and do their own online research and develop their own biopesticides. And the equivalent of green mussel, green guard, is produced in Australia, which was taken from all the literature that was produced as part of the Lubelosa project. So Dr. Samuel was correct in saying that to use biologicals, you really need to target them in their breeding site before they become adults. I'm sure you're all aware that the locusts have got 5 infant stages before they become adults. And within those 5 growth stages, they can't fly. So they can't fly to agricultural land. So this is the perfect time to attack them, whether you use a biological or you use a chemical. That's the best time to attack them, because it's before they reach the agricultural land, before they reach the farmers. Now, biologicals take longer to kill the locusts than a conventional one. A conventional pesticide will kill within an hour, 24 hours for sure. However, what you do find is that over time, insects, newly hatched locusts or locusts coming from other areas will bring those population levels back up to what they were originally before spraying. What you find with a biological is you will spray it, and for the first week, you won't really see any drop in numbers. However, from about day 7 onwards, you'll then start to have death of those those locusts due to the biological. And by day 14, you'll have very good control. Now, what happens though after day 14 is actually those numbers stay low. They don't increase, which is what you get with a chemical pesticide. Because this is really important, is because new insects hatching or coming into that area pick up the fungus, and they can do this in 2 ways. They can either pick it up from the dead locusts, and locusts in particular are not particularly nice, and they will cannibalize each other. So obviously if you've got an ill locust, others fit ones will come and eat it, but in doing that, they pick up the spores of the Mycorrhizum, and then they become infected in turn, and then they die. Or you can pick up what's called secondary pickup, which is the underside of leaves, plants that have been sprayed, and they can come and pick up those spores. And as long as those spores are out of UV direct light, so for example, on the underside of leaves or in shaded areas, then those spores are going to survive longer. So you get a very good control over a longer period than you do with a chemical pesticide. So experiments that we did in Africa, and these were quite large scale. One was at 800 hectare plots. We showed that after 14 days, there was no difference between the numbers in the chemical treated plots and the biological treated plots. The only difference is that in the chemical plots, the numbers were increasing, and in the biological plots, the numbers were decreasing. So by day 21, those insects in the chemical plots were back up to the control levels, where those insects sprayed with the biological were very low. They were less than 2 locusts per meter squared. So really low numbers. So this is the advantage of using biological. But I think this needs to be done at the government level, not at the farmer level, because the locusts were not going to hatch their eggs on disturbed soil, which is mainly agricultural soil. They like to lay and hatch their eggs in undisturbed soils. So this is really the importance of the government or the local counties taking responsibility for this and applying their biopesticides earlier by targeting them before they can reach adulthood.
That's a very interesting point there, Dr. Luke, which you're talking about when actually we need to address this and through the government. Now, the government of India has held a series of consultation, and just a couple of days ago, they also had a very extensive discussion that has also been shared widely. At this point of time, what is the level of the research? The government has also said that this is something they need to focus on much more on research. But for this particular season and this year, is it too late to do anything, or can we already start? Dr. Jaba, Jagdish, I'd like to invite you to make your opening remarks at this point. You have been working with a lot of insects, and it's something that a lot of scientists in India are also struggling to place their finger on because of the experience, that prior experience that's required with locusts. Can you share what it is that you're going through, the evidence that you're pulling out?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Actually, I myself Jaba Jagdish. I'm an entomologist at ICRISAT. So, in current context, actually, this is the locust. Actually, due to it's majorly invaded, especially in Rajasthan. Usually, it used to be appear in the June-July. Actually, summer breeding, the summer breeding in the Rajasthan. But majorly, the locust will depend upon this majorly on the wind and rain as well as vegetations. This time, what happened? Whatever the March month, and the Rajasthan had received them almost 30 districts of they received rain, all followed by MP. Madhya Pradesh also received rain. Due to that reason, this locust is a very efficient for the due to the wind movement to the western to the eastern side. So it helped to the movement. The locust, it along with the wind direction, it or whatever it appear on the vegetation, it's attacked and it will damage. In context to the southern side, as the southern side, it is not entered up to the entered in the Nagpur region. In the Nagpur region, the state government of state department of agriculture and the locust control organization, they have effectively they manage the locust the less of the swarm to the southern side that moving to come to southern India, but they managed quite well in the Nagpur regions. Due to that reason, and also the wind directions, the current wind direction is a southern to the northern side. So the opposite direction of the locust, it's difficult to enter in the southern side. So due to the unfavorable condition of the locust or to the wind, so this locust is difficult to enter in the southern India, in the Telangana and this part of the Karnataka. So these reasons, so environmentally help for this pest for the invading India this time. And also, actually, in context to the locust, currently we have the only two insecticides, the malathion and deltamethrin, that's approved by the CIB. So now in the process of labeling of other ultra low value sprayer like profenofos and deltamethrin, also they're making to the enforcing to the another two insecticide, and also majorly focusing on the biopesticides like the neem is a very effective control, is anti-pedant activity. Especially in the nipple stage, and one more, actually they are working that quite well, as the Duke has mentioned in the presentation, like green mussel. It is very effective in the Western Africa. They are effectively managing, but in context to the in Indian context, actually we have to import this green mussel, the entomopathogenic fungus for the management of locust. But it's having a one quite interesting is that most of the entomopathogenic fungus is depend upon the relative humidity. But in India, they have the diversity of relative humidity. In most of the coastal area, they having the high humidity. So wherever the high humidity, the entomopathogenic fungus, it will very effectively work. But in context, the green mussel fungal agent, it's having a one quite interesting is that it has a oil formation. So it is very effective under the enormous low humidity condition. Also, it is quite effectively work well. And also NBBR Bangalore, they have isolated some of the like Acridium, the species of the fungal, in the especially and Bavaria Vacina 2 species. They are working quietly, and they are mass produced and supplied to the in Rajasthan and MP and Jodhpur and Punjab. They are testing under field conditions to see their effectiveness under field conditions for the coming invasions.
So thanks a lot there. So what you're suggesting is that we need a more diverse availability of controlling agents at this point of time, and we have just
at this point of time. So one more thing is actually most of the farmers have the panic on the other, actually their farmers, they're confusing between the locust desert locust and the Ecke grasshopper, the other species. So we have to inform to the farmers by the technical bulletin, as well as some like taxonomy pictures, the representation, which are the typical characters of desert locust characters, and other like other species like Ecke grasshopper, like it will be appear on the Calotropis species of the weed. So farmers, we have to make the assurance to identify the self identification of the which one species is the locust. So it happened in the recent in the Tamil Nadu, in the Trivandrum, in Andhra like Vishakhapatnam. That's other species are appeared. The farmers are fear and panic, and they thought that it is desert locusts appearing. So we have to instruct or guide to or educate the farmers the species identification especially.
So thanks a lot for that. And meanwhile, we'll also just check if Dr. Luke was telling us something very interesting before she got cut off, if she's able to join back. Dr. Luke, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can hear you. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, we can. So you were saying something very interesting when we got a little cut off, that the results of the experimentations that you had, and what the government of India and how the government action needs to be concerted at this stage rather than individual farmers. Could you elaborate on that, please?
Yes, it's been shown time and time again, whether you use biological or chemical control, that if you can target the locusts when they are at their before they reach adulthood and they're through their various growth stages, then you're going to get far better control of them. And in theory, it shouldn't go to the agricultural land to affect the farmer. So really, detection is a vital role, early detection and early control of those locusts. Because if you detect them early enough, you've got time to put a biological on. I don't need to tell everybody here the side effects of putting chemical pesticides on, and also as well from the results that we did, experiments we did, actually we can show that a biological can work just as well, if not better, than a chemical if there's time to do that. Now, if the insects are already on the agricultural farms, then the farmer really has very little choice. The biologicals won't work in time. They'll have eaten their crops before they have a chance to kill them. So then you're really only left with chemicals. But even at that stage, chemicals, they'll probably eat the crops before they have a chance to die. So really, early detection is crucial to help the Indian farmers.
And what is the opinion of the panel on various suggestions with regard to making loud noises, or that could help or will help farmers once the swarms are attacking farms? So is this actually proven, backed by evidence?
It's certainly been used in Africa. There's been banging in that to keep them away. How effective that is, I don't think it's been quantified, but I do know that that's been used. And also burning as well to produce smoke to keep grasshoppers. And again, I can't quantify to how successful that is.
One thing which I would like to tell about is that regarding the biological control that our UK friend was talking about, I would suggest that the first and foremost thing is that we will have to find out the breeding sites, because normally when we use this green muscadine fungus, we use them in the they are very much they can attack the young ones. And also say for example in rhinoceros beetle, when we want to control the rhinoceros beetle, we will find out its breeding site, and in the manure pits we apply these things. But the same way, we will have to find out the breeding site where the swarms they start to occur, and in that place if you spray the biologicals, perhaps it will be useful. Otherwise it will be very difficult to control. Then you have to go only for the control measures. This is what I was talking about. The field. Yeah, please.
Yes, sir, I would like to ask one question.
Sure.
Yeah, so actually, what will be the probable breeding sites for this desert locust in India?
Generally, the breeding size, it's a dry desert-like condition without any crops where they would breed. Normally, the locusts, they will insert the ovipositor at least 10 centimeter inside, and then they would lay their eggs in pods. So each pod will have a few eggs, and totally one can have 200 to 300 eggs that they can lay. and this probably we'll be able to locate, and then if you target our application of this green muscardine in these areas, probably we'll have some good control.
A possibility of the egg-laying by this desert locust in the Indian soil.
Yes, desert locusts, now you can see them in Indian soil between July to October, because this is the summer months in India where you can see the breeding. Generally, as I said earlier, the locust breeding would be in 3 different seasons. In India, fortunately, it is only in summer months. Generally, you have winter breeding and also, and also summer breeding. So it is in this place now we can see.
If you consider the Maharashtra state, so there is a no crop, means there is a very few land where crops are standing. So now it is a barren land now. So there will be a possibility of egg-laying by this desert locust in Maharashtra as well.
They can lay their eggs, but one thing now we have to consider that the kharif sowing has not yet started. So if the kharif sowing is not started, then the locusts, they will have to depend upon some perennial crops, perennial trees where they will have to go and then they have to attack themselves. If the kharif sowing is started, then the locust will have more of food, and then it can attack. Fortunately, the southwest monsoon is just hitting Kerala, and then it will come to north, and only then we will have the kharif sowing. So it will wait for some time. So perhaps this is the time we can look for this swarm and also the eggs, and then we can find out. Now generally, even if you see the photographs in it all, we would see only on big trees and avenue trees where the locust swarm will come and settles down, because crop is not available. So the control of these locusts at this point of time, it is encouraged, and now
so immediate and urgent action is very important, it seems very clearly. So Dr. Jagdish, you had I think a slide on how to actually identify and differentiate, so to avoid the panic at this time. So if you could share that, please, it will be really helpful for us.
Yeah, this is a left side. What is the G? G means gregarious female, the female, and the gregarious female actually gregarious female, and the which yes means solitary female. The difference between the gregarious female and solitary female is actually the solitary female having the larger size, and the hind femur will be larger, and the hind femur will be lesser in the gregarious female. In case of the male, in case right side, you can see the gregarious male to typically yellow color variation, and the solitary male is the different like a greenish band. And the pronotum, this pronotum actually the pronotum on the head, it will be lesser in the gregarious, and it will be larger inside the solitary phase. These are the typical characters. Apart from these characters, also these the solitary phase are active during the night time, and the gregarious phase are active during the daytime.
So what is the one we should worry about?
Madam, can I add a few more things to Dr. From our friend from ICRISAT?
Yes, sir. You can add it, sir.
Yeah. Can you just give me to share my slides, because I have some more photographs to show. Because if you see, there are 500 different types of locusts, grasshoppers that are available, and there are 11 species that they become locusts. And out of that, in India, we have only 4 species that will attack. For here, you see, these are the 10 species normally you would see all over the world that will become locusts, right? Out of that, we in India, we would have only 4 species. One is the desert locust, and the other one is the Bombay locust, and the other one is oriental migratory locust, and also the tree locust. These are the locusts that we do have in India.
So I have one question for the panel, and maybe each one can probably take it. So could you suggest, Dr. Luke, both Dr. Jagdish and Dr. Kennedy, in terms of immediate action points, if you could suggest 3 things that need to be done by the system, the agricultural system, And 3 things that farmers, especially in the western and the northern regions of India, should do to take care of themselves. What would it be? We'll start with Dr. Luke.
Hello, hope you can see me, hear me. So I would say the most important thing for the government to do is early detection of the locusts in the breeding ground. And once they've detected them, then to apply biological products to control them. And also to make, once they've detected them, to make farmers aware that they have detected them. So farmers can then prepare if the control, for whatever reason, doesn't happen, that they can then prepare their crops. The farmers, I think the 3 things I would suggest is monitoring again, monitor your crops, see if there's any locusts around. If locusts do come around, obviously you've got the need, the anti-feeding effects, if you can get hold of that. And then if not, then really we're looking at disruptive mechanisms for going out and making loud noises to scare them off as much as possible.
For farmers, what would you like to suggest for the farming community?
So for the farming community, I would suggest vigilance. Look and see if you can detect any locusts that are on the ground or that adults and they're flying. And then if the government sends out early warnings that locusts are in the area, to apply your anti-feeding to do that. And then if the locusts do come, then to make loud noises to try to scare them off. That will be my 3 recommendations.
Thank you. And Dr. Jagdish, to get back to your points about you already had one actionable item on control agents. If you could just give us your other suggestions on what needs to be done right now.
If the farmers that are growing, they have to go the deep summer flowing. If some of the locusts have already invaded some region, and actually they prefer the sandy loam, loose soil they will prefer for egg laying. So farmers prefer before the planting, at least they give the deep flowing, and it makes the exposure to the sunlight. And it also the natural enemies like the birds also feed on the eggs on the grasshoppers. And also whatever the incidents appear in the field conditions, farmers should make actually like the traditional way, like the beating sounds in drums, radio, electronic sounds. It will also prefer the farmers they used to that currently going in India, and smoking the field in these locusts, especially during night hours. The smoking, it will also it will make the help to the to move the whatever the locust appear in the field condition. We can easily pick locusts. Also flamethrowers and the catching the machine, the hoppers will be catching the machines, killing them, and crushing with rulers if the locusts appearing on the field conditions. And thus, as already said that like a hatching, if the eggs are started hatching or nymphs are observed, spray biopesticide like metrorrhizum and spule, and Paranomia locustae, it's this entomophagus fungus is effectively working in Africa and China, like 75 grams per 50 liters of water, like especially effective in the egg and nymph stage of the locust. And also we can use the appearing in the one field condition in 1 acre area. So we have to make the dig trench or 2 feet deep in surrounding the field, and make in the inside the 2 feet deep we can put it the quinolphos like 1.5%, like 25 kg around the trenches. So whatever the movement of the swarming, the movement, the nymphs, it will fall down in the trenches, and it automatically will be killed by the poison of insecticide. Apart from these are especially the preventive measures for killing the locust under farmers' practices.
So thanks a lot, Dr. Kennedy. Your 3 key action points that you would like to say.
Yeah, I would like to tell you that there are, the control measures and the action points, we can have it in 5 different headings. So number 1 is monitoring is very, very important. That is because that is the one that will say how the movement of the locusts are there and how they are going. See, there is a locust warning stations are there in Rajasthan and other places. Follow that thing, and then you will have to monitor the movement of the locusts. That's very important, where they go, and then based upon the wind movement, we'll be able to monitor. And secondly, when you go for control measures, I'd say that there are 4 different things. One is that the mechanically, what perhaps we can do by digging trenches. My earlier speaker, he was talking about it, and beating and burning. And while we dig trenches, we can also have the insecticides spread over there, and then the creeping, the fledglings, that can be attracted or pushed towards the trenches, and they can be killed. And then it is also possible that now we can apply fine dust. Day before yesterday, I was reading in the newspaper that one farmer has applied fine sand over his crop, and he was able to control the locusts. And then the next day, he washed the plants with the water spray. And then the third thing that perhaps we can think of is baiting. So scattering locust food that can be impregnated with some insecticides that can also be thought of. And then finally, now we can also go in for spraying liquid insecticides, whether it's chemical or biological. When we think of biological agent, I would suggest that we can isolate the breeding site and then apply particularly the green muscat and fungus and other liquid chemicals such as deltamethrin, chlorpyrifos, and lambda cyclothin and malathion. These can be applied. They are all approved by CIBRC. Yesterday there was a presentation. So these are the things which I am thinking about. And however, whatever the control measures against the locusts that we take, it should be community-wise rather than it is individual field-wise. Because if you go individually field-wise, perhaps it will not work out.
Thank you, sir. So that's a very key message from all the 3 speakers, that we need to have government and community level action. We'll take a few questions. I think Dr. Ravi was keen to put in a question. Are you able to take your question now?
Yeah, let me introduce myself. Is Dr. Ravi, professor from Tamil Nadu Agriculture University. Earlier, I was in NIPHM director, National Institute of Plant Health Management. In fact, this locust is a serious problem. You are talking about the management. As your title says, locust attack, what Indian farming community need to know. The important point is whatever population right now we have, they are all moved from the eastern part of the world, where that is East Africa. Straight away they came through Pakistan. And now the question of managing them in the use of biocontrol will not exist, because it can do only when they make a large swarm like that. We call it as band swarms. Now the thing is, as far as India is concerned, this breeding happens somewhere, as Dr. Kennedy was telling, rightly was talking, this is happening only in June, July month. The population will come out from the desert area in our Indian continent. But again, another important information is somewhere in June, July, we are going to have a great swarm straight away coming from this Somalia and other region. Now there are 2 aspects. One is, as far as locust is concerned, a farmer cannot do it on a broader perspective. Is an international pest, and our government, they have a locust warning organization having a beautiful thing to go through. Now they really we missed in managing this, monitoring this particular brood that has come to us, and because it has happened because of the last year summer shower happened in the central Africa, where the second plus came, the locusts, they breed and they laid the egg. That population busted and they arrived early. Now the question is, our government have a very good initiative. Unfortunately, there is a link between the research scientists and the government of Indian organization. As far as locust is concerned, many of us don't know how it is, how it works, because it's not that much serious earlier. And India, we did very serious research in IRI last 10-15 years before. Now nowhere it happened, because we felt it's a pest related to direct rate of plant protection, quarantine, and storage. Now yesterday there is a discussion, now there is a program to make a serious effort from Indian subcontinent itself, in spite of expecting something from international organization like FAO. Right now, I could get a message from Mrs. Luke, I think she's from Kabi. And now there is a question where they breed, how to manage them. As far as the biocontrol agent, whatever we discuss, this will happen only for the immature stages that breeds only on the breeding side. Now we are on the next stage where they are in migratory form. And I want to give this information. Now farmer,
there is a question, can we, the voice created will repel the insect? That is highly possible. People now remove that silencer from the bike and they make the voice to ride away the locust from their farm. That's happening in North India, point 1. Point 2, there is a beautiful material, neem seed kernel extract. We should teach our farmer to produce them on their own, let them apply as a prophylactic spray so that that will act as an anti-feedant as well as repel. These two things are in farmers' hands, remaining in the policy makers and the national level aspect as far as this is concerned. So this is my information. Another thing is, my question to the panel.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'll ask one question to our panel. Now we have the southwest monsoon, wherein the air stream goes along the western coast of our country and it goes to the northern part and it may ride away the locust towards the Calcutta region. I mean, UP like this. And we have another air current, that is northwest monsoon. Sometime is there any hope for this air current to bring this residual population of locusts into southern district, I mean southern state, that needs to be addressed? Thank you.
I think that the movement of this locust towards the southern part of India is only remote. That's what I think. But it is possible, but it's remote. Because if you look at historically, all the recorded locust swarms, they have occurred only in the northeastern part of India. For example, since 1964, we have 4 swarms, and then last year, 2019, 1,500 swarms, but none of them have come to south. The main reason is that the breeding time, it occurs in June, July, up to October, and this time, the southwest monsoon is in operation, and it will push the population towards north, to Delhi and Uttar Pradesh region, and from there, to come down south, by the time the temperature has also come down, and then the locust survival itself is a problem, and they don't move down south. So that's the reason South India always, it escapes the locust attack. But the possibility is remote, but we cannot totally say that it will not come down to south at all. But if it comes down to the south, it will be in a very small swarm, and that we can control.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Jagdish?
In southern India, it's during 1939, 1933. It appeared in especially in southern India, like Coimbatore and Hyderabad region. The Bombay locust, it's appeared. After that, it is also depend upon the, as Kennedy sir suggestions that whatever the southwest monsoon, the wind, it will move. It was very difficult to come down to the southern side of the locust, and it's read the temperature up to that it will move coming down. It will require the temperature for this sustainable for this multiplication. It needs loose soil, sandy lot for breeding.
An interesting question here, which from Uma Maheshwar. It says that apart from disadvantages, are there any advantages of locusts? So we are discussing them as pests here today in this particular panel, but are there any advantages?
Locust, yes, it is a pest. If we can't control, better we will have them as a food, because there are some delicacies made out of locusts. So we can make themselves as a food. That's the only thing that I would say. Yeah.
Sir, in many parts of Pakistan, they collect the locust and use that locust for poultry feed also.
Yes, it is.
I think. So, Dr. Luke and Dr. Jagdish, you wanted to say something?
I would just agree that, yes, really, when they're in the gregarious stage, the swarm stage, really only food is the only advantage of having them. Of course, when they're in the solitary stage, it's not an issue. It's just on those odd years when they become gregarious, which is on average about every 7 years for the desert locust.
So there's also a query about the entry of locust swarm to Northeast India. So Dr. Jagdish, would you like to take that? We've heard about South India, but what about Northeast India? Rudra Narayanan has asked.
India actually, So as it happened this year, actually, that's whatever the population is appeared up to the in Madhya Pradesh is entered. After Madhya Pradesh is entered, due to the control operation is started, and that whatever the huge number of swamps are there, it is divided into two. And it one side it moved to the eastern Nagpur area, and one side it moved to the UP. So due to that reason, actually, the sum of the population we managed in the Nagpur and in the north side. So if the wind prevails and the prevailing of the wind from the eastern to western, like West Bengal side, if the prevailing in the wind prevail, then the population will move to northeast also. But the wind direction will not be prevail for the movement of the locust in northeast.
Okay, so the possibilities are there, but right now you feel it's not favorable.
Right now it's not there. Yeah.
Have another question from to say that can you share a successful way to combat locusts from experiences of North India? So already we have some experiences from North India. That's one, and I'll give you another question as well. When the breeding time, that's from Alok Jera, who says breeding time is July to October, then how is this swarm in the current month? I think that was partially answered already by the speakers, but I'm anyway opening it up to the floor. So these are the two questions from the audience.
I'll give the answers for Alok. Earlier, while we were discussing that the breeding, it happens in 3 times. One is summer breeding, winter breeding, as well as spring breeding. Now, in India, we do have only summer breeding in the month of June, July. But at the same time, the spring breeding, it happens much earlier in Pakistan. So from Pakistan, it crosses the border to come into India. That is why we do have the swarms, at this part of time in Gujarat and Rajasthan, where it comes from Pakistan, which we cannot control. And then they come, settle down here, and then they go for summer breeding. That's the reason for its prevalence in during this time.
So the question is that the successful ways from experiences of North India. I think that will be very useful if we do know of how there have been some success. Dr. Liu, would you like to share some experiences of successful ways in which it can be dealt with? Successful ways of dealing with the situation, especially the query is with regard to North India, but you could probably broaden it as well to just talk about successful experiences.
Yeah, okay, so you do have this problem, and it's seen a lot in Africa, where you'll have the locusts will hatch and breed in one area, and then when they become adults, and they fly into a different area. So for that, FAO, to a certain degree, take over the responsibility, or you have a group of countries like the SILS countries in West Africa that agree to work together to control locusts. So really, to get that control, if the locusts are coming in from Pakistan, it was mentioned, then there needs to be ideally some collaboration there to be able to help the farmers in each of the different countries.
So we have a query from Janvi Tiwari, who says, we are doing the discussions, but does this reach the farmers? Yes, Janvi, we do have a number of ways in which we directly communicate, and we will be also documenting and sharing and translating the session into different languages so that it will reach the farmers as well. And she also asked, is the government taking enough actions with biopesticides? So, Dr. Jagdish, you already had a point about the pesticides. Would you like to just take that?
Yeah, actually, recently, anyone director of NBR also emphasized that actually we have currently only one biopesticide, and NSKE is working well. So we have to identify the alternate other biopesticides. Also, we have to do research to along with the new NSKE. So alternate or one more biopesticide we can add. So the research actually they want to be explored in this area.
Yeah, thank you. So Mr. Ravichandran says the false alarm and rumors are doing their rounds. Yes, which is why we had this discussion, and hopefully some rumors were dispelled here today. And Mohammed says, do you think that the destroying of birds is also one of the reason of emergence of the locusts.
I'd like to comment on that one. We had a real big problem in Africa when we were running our field trials, is that when the locusts are infected with the Bedrisium, they become very inactive. So it's easier for prey, whether that's birds or lizards, whatever it may be, to eat them. So we had a very big problem with birds eating the locusts, and therefore we couldn't go back and count the number of dead locusts because they had been eaten by the birds. So birds do play a big effect in locust control, and they may well be having an effect. However, in swarms, whether they could actually control the swarms, I'm not sure, but they certainly do eat locusts.
So I can add one point.
Yes, Jagdish.
Actually, the recent the study by Kennady 2019, they studied that toxic anti-predator defense mechanism, especially in the gregarious locust. So whatever the gregarious locust they have, gregarious locusts they will produce the phenylalanine and the cytochrome gene. So it makes the formation of phenylacetylamine. These makes the toxic to the especially the birds. And in case of solitary locusts, they don't produce these are the compounds in this particular the insect. So these are actually some toxic anti-predator defense. They are the locusts they developed. But meantime, actually, we have some of the other natural enemies. They are actually other natural enemies like the species, the parasitoid wasp and like the predatory blister beetles. Blister beetles, especially the grubs feed on the eggs, and the birds like the passer and the reptiles like reptiles also they feed on the nymphal stage of the locusts.
So that's also an important message here for us. Question, we are actually a few minutes over time, so maybe we will take 2-3 more questions if it is all right with the speakers, and then we will wrap up because there are quite a few questions. So there's a question from Sashi, who says that the Kharif season just started. Will the impact on field crop and cereals going to be heavy? And question from Mr. Ravichandran, the farmer, is how to avoid chemical sprays contaminating water bodies, residential areas. These are the 2 questions. And the third one, maybe I'll give you 3 together, is the locust problem related to global warming. So there's a discussion about the Kharif season, about avoiding chemical contamination, and about global warming. Over to the panel, please.
Yeah, in context of the global warming, currently, as you've seen in the last so many cyclones in Mid East and in African regions, though due to that whatever the cyclones, it make some of the populations to divert, or it make the habitat, they change their behavior. Due to that reason, now usually we used to appear one swarming population usually June to July, but due to the cyclone appeared in the Mid East, that effect on the one more population of the summer population is going to be in the coming July month of the swarm will be appearing in the Rajasthan. And similarly in India, the Ampon cyclone also, it will it make the issues like the behavior of the locust. It's to the wind direction. It's moved to the eastern side and the West Bengal. Though due to that reason, the wind it moved to the help the locust to enter the mid of the Madhya Pradesh and the Rajasthan. So this global warming and the climate change also influence on the especially locust behavior and their influence mitigate the effect of the crops.
Yeah, I would like to add something. What Jagdish has said, what he said is absolutely correct. Global warming, it aids in the locust swarming, very specifically because of the unusual rains, because of the cyclone in the Middle East, particularly in Iran. No, that is the reason in 2019 we have some extra swarming by the locusts, and then they have moved into India. Now, if you just see the historical data, in 2019 alone, we have 1,500 swarm incursions. No, that is huge when compared to other. The earlier time, no, in the year 1993, we had 172. Where is 172 and where is 1,500? It really helps the global warming. It helps. And then want to answer Dr. Ravichandran from Tamil Nadu, and how to avoid contamination in water and other things. Yes, you have to avoid contamination. This contamination of water bodies and other things, when it comes, when you go for spraying at a community level, but you will have to take care that, if you go use some drones and other things, please see that the spray drift, it doesn't go over there, and then to some extent, you can avoid contaminating your water bodies and then losing your fish. Otherwise, it can be controlled. But for locusts, it is a pest that we can control with very, very mild insecticides, even like malathion.
Yes, Dr. Liu?
Yeah, just a note on the global warming aspect of it. So I've been working on a project in China looking at locust control. And what we've developed is an app that has taken the last 20 years data of locust outbreak and how quickly the locusts go from becoming, when they're first detected in the fields, to say egg hatching through to adults, which is when they're the biggest problem for agriculture. And with that data, we have shown that in certain parts of China, the climate is changing. So that does mean that you're more likely to get locusts in some areas than in other areas. We've also can see from looking at this historic data that the climate, as already mentioned by the other two speakers, is just becoming more erratic. There's not that set pattern that we're all used to. And I think a combination of these two things are really allowing locusts to just populate the area and have their outbreak.
Thank you. So we'll take the last two questions, although there are many more here. Hopefully we will get them answered through our social media platforms. So there's a question from Mr. Saket Ranjan, who says, apart from farmers, can the public or other people do something to fight this attack? And Dr. Rangalakshmi says that research studies highlight non-chemical methods like plant extracts, such as garlic and essential oils. So the panel members view. So yeah, and there is a farm tele-advisor from the Kisan Call Center in Tamil Nadu who asks if there is any precautionary measures. You did mention precaution at the start. So what can farmers do in terms of precautionary measures? So these three questions, please, to the panel.
Yeah, I'd like to say one thing. Number one is that regarding the application of the garlic extract or chili extract and other things. Now, this you can do it in a very small thing. But however, how much amount of garlic that are available to prepare a garlic extract to control the locust? That one swarm will have, say, few hundred kilometers, together. Now, how to do that? It may not be a workable solution to go for this sort of things. But we will have to do it, but better we will have to do it in a community style. And generally, even for biological control, what we say is that when the insect population density is much higher, then we will have to go in for other chemical methods, not at the biological methods. So we will have to see. And one more information which I would like to give you is that regarding the ETL. Now, yes, 2 days back I was listening a webinar from ICAR, and they suggested that 10,000 locusts per square hectare. That per hectare. That is the ETL, or 5 to 6 nymphs per bush. That will be the ETL. And for Tamil Nadu, what precautionary measures that we have to take is that someone has asked is, so better don't get panic by yourself. See, whatever we do have right now are all grasshoppers, particularly in collector office. There is one painted grasshopper. It looks exactly like locust, but see and educate yourself to differentiate what is a locust and what is a solitary grasshopper. The solitary grasshopper, yes, it will be remaining in the field and it will eat a little bit, and it will also be the food for birds and other things. So don't get panic about it, and you will not get locust over down in south. But however, if it comes, or if it then now we will have to see for the warning, and we will have to monitor, and then we will have to take up the control measures.
Yes, Dr. Liu and Dr. Jagdish, any final words to wrap up, both related to the questions as well as
actually final words. Actually, only we have to educate our farmers by actually sharing. We have to share some bulletins of the like example, especially how the locust will look like, and how with other locusts, because most of the farmers are, especially the panic as soon as they see some locust like appearance or other species also. So we have to educate our farmers through agriculture department by sharing the bulletin, or like small folders like on the locust management.
That's an excellent point, and I think our presenters do have that. And Dr. Liu?
Yeah, I would just like to say, sort of going back to the garlic oil that was talked about earlier, is that the problem is with local production is it can be very, very variable. One bulb of garlic may be stronger than others, so it's very difficult to get a consistent product that works every time. So that's one of the issues with using natural plant extracts that's made on a local basis. But generally, I would just say that generally the best way to control locusts is through early detection and monitoring, and that really should be led by the government, or at least the local government. The farmers can do their bit in that, but really it needs to be the government who makes this.
So those are very useful. Early detection and prevention being the key to this. This has been very interesting, and I think the questions are still not over, but we are running, over time, and I think it's a good idea to just share the presentations so that it can also reach farmers and down to the field. As we wrap up, this is to really say a very heartfelt thanks to our three experts for today, Dr. Belinda Liu, Dr. Jaba Jagdish, and Dr. Kennedy. You've been incredibly knowledgeable and very precise about the various aspects of the concerns that people have had here today. And yes, there is a lot more that we still do have. So we have been, of course, working with multiple institutions, and we will share it through the government as well as the Krishi Vigyan Kendras, where we have partnerships, as well as with farmer networks. Also, the CABI Plant-Wise program, which has been working on plant health with plant doctors, is another way in which it can be shared. Public information is key. Government and community action is key. And I do hope both of this will happen soon, and with immediate effect, so that we can prevent major damage and we can protect the crops of our farmers. So thank you very much. And to the audience, we had a full house. Apologies to those who couldn't enter at the beginning of the session. And thanks to all who have stayed all through. So thank you very much.